What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to work on Project Blueberry a little bit more, and we're going to be installing the intake manifold, throttle body assembly, the fuel rail, fuel injectors, and I mentioned in the previous video all of the fuel components I have right here. Like the KRX and the wagon, we are running the eBay special intake manifold for the K24 A2 or the Z3. And if you're running the K20 head, you can always cut this off right here. But we are running this intake manifold from eBay. This manifold was $130. And then we are running the eBay B-Series throttle body, since the pattern is for a B-Series throttle body. This is about $45, and this is a 70mm as well, which is actually matched to the port of the intake manifold itself. As mentioned, I've ran this combination before and it has worked out pretty well. I mean, if you're gonna buy the other brands and have a sticky throttle body anyways, you might as well just spend the 45, save some cash, and get one from eBay, right? Whatever else we install in today's video, we will talk about it when we unbox it. But for right now, we're gonna go ahead and get this installed first. So with this intake manifold, we are gonna be running a thermal gasket. This is still brand new in the box. So let's go ahead and open this up real quick. This package came from Speed Factory. This right here is a Speed Factory K24 A2, K20 Z3 thermal intake manifold gasket. Normally I run Honda, but I can't seem to find them anywhere in stock, and Speed Factory has great product as well too. So this actually shipped to me like literally one day. Intake manifold gasket, intake manifold, throttle body, link in the description below. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this throttle body back off because there's no gasket in between. The kit does provide its own gasket. I normally run a thermal gasket for the throttle body to intake manifold, but I don't have one, so I'm just gonna rock with this. It does come with the hardware as well too. Now, I'm not going to be running this map sensor from eBay because this is very sketch, especially under boosted application. I'm going to be putting a stock one on here once I go and find it somewhere in my pile, and I'm a little questionable about the TPS sensor as well too. It's not much to get a TPS sensor from like the parts store, which I actually trust more than this, so these two might get swapped out later. The throttle body kit does provide the 2 bolts right here that holds the throttle cable bracket. You can use a GSR throttle cable bracket, which I have in the KRX, so I'm gonna have to go to the storage unit to find a throttle cable bracket and throttle cable itself, since I don't have one right here. The intake manifold kit did come with a little bag of like barbs and plugs, but I don't know where I placed them, so this right here needs to be closed off because we're not using a K-series map sensor. Underneath the intake manifold here, we have 2 little openings for 2 barbs, which you can use for extra vacuum ports for whatever reason. I'm going to need this when I go turbo so we can get some vacuum source, but for right now I have to figure out how to close these up because I don't know where my little bag is at. K24 A2 Speed Factory thermal gasket going on. So we have the eBay intake manifold and the eBay throttle body installed with the Speed Factory thermal gasket, and the next thing we're going to step into is the fuel rail and injector system. Over here we have the box provided by Huntertuned, and we're going to be running his fuel rail, but we're not going to be running the injectors just yet because we're not going to be boosting the car. We are going to be running the factory fuel injectors just to get the car to turn on for now, which is right here. Fuel rail provided by Huntertuned. You can see his logo right there. Big shout out, Hunter. Thank you once again for coming on board. Hunter also provided a discount code for you guys if you're interested in any of his items like turbos, blow-off valves, wastegates, fuel rails, injectors. Hunter's website is in the description below, so be sure to check it out. The kit does come with all of the fittings right there, right here, and if you're like an 8th gen or an RSX or a car that came K-swap already, they do provide the banjo fitting for that. I'm not sure if it's interchangeable with the factory one, but the kit does come with one. right now we're not going to worry about the fittings and stuff until we get the fuel rail and injectors in the car. So right now, let's go ahead and assemble the fuel injectors. I don't have hardware, so I'm gonna have to find a 12 mil and then find a spacer in between to secure the fuel rail to the intake manifold. One and 1/8. Huntertuned fuel rail installed with the stock R6 Type S injectors, and I did make some spacers down low because I didn't have hardware for it, and the spacer is definitely a lot better than a bunch of washers. So that's ready to rock and roll. And moving on to the next thing here is everything attaching to the fuel rail. So this right here is a package from the homie B&R Fittings. Cut away from yourself, not towards yourself. Yeesh. So in this box here, oh wow, this is new. Big shout out to B&R Fittings. This is new to me, and I love mesh caps. And I have a favorite one from Street to Track, which I actually want to get a new one of. If you look right here, my Street to Track cap, and super duper retired because I ripped the strap in the back, and this thing is super dirty from wearing it at Tesla every single day. So like Rochelle, if you watch my videos ever, I would love to get me a new one. We have the B&R sticker per usual. This right here is PTFE hose. This is rated for ethanol, and I got 6 feet of this because I'm not entirely sure how I'm gonna route the fuel lines just yet. The fuel pressure regulator, I am keeping it the same like the KRX, where we're gonna be remote mounting the fuel pressure regulator onto the fuel rail. So that is this right here. We do have the hardware for the fuel pressure regulator. This is going to replace the OEM one that's obviously not in the car. The car didn't even come with one, I don't think. This is a 5.5 fuel filter. I normally run the 3, but he didn't have any 3s, and the bigger the filter, the better. And also, I believe, I want to say this is a 10 micron filter. I don't remember if it's a 10 or 100. I have to check my text again. And then this little package right here contains all of the fittings I'm gonna need to convert everything to AN. The first thing I'm gonna run up here is the fuel pressure regulator, and that will allow me to figure out how I'm gonna run all the lines to and from. This right here is an orb 6-to-6. This attaches to the side of the fuel pressure regulator, and it goes onto the fuel rail right there. There's a lubricant that you use on the O-rings to ensure it doesn't tear when you install this piece. I kind of just dab a little bit of oil on it because I can't seem to find it. Brian did provide it on a previous build before, but your boy's clumsy. I don't remember where things go. So this just goes onto the end of the fuel rail. Again, I'm not mounting it onto the chassis because it's going to be too close to the turbo, and I like it being up in the front here, easy adjustability, and simply enough, you secure it into place, and then the opposite end goes into your fuel rail. Now this is going to depend on which rail you have to ensure you get the correct fitting for it. So right now, I just realized there's a bracket on here, so let me remove that real quick. I am going to tilt this back a little bit, something like that. The next thing I want to do here is probably the two fittings onto the feed and return system on the hard line. Where's my other fitting at? This one right here. The lines that I'm talking about are these right here. So we have this one, which is the smaller of the two. This is the return line. This one right here is the fuel tank breather, and then the third one right here in the back is the one that goes to the stock fuel filter. So this is the feed in, and I am going to convert it to -6, but I'm going to be doing it down low here. Looking at the return line, it looks like I can get away with just cutting the nipple off, and then I can screw on the tube fitting with the brass compression ring and convert this to a -6. The feed line itself needs to be stripped of this coating right here, so that way I can get the brass compression ring to fit over it. But I'm gonna go ahead and do this one first. So next thing up here is the fuel filter and bracket. So I already figured out where I'm going to be mounting this, and I had to hollow out this mounting bracket holes a little bit more just to use the stock studs on the firewall, which is these guys right here. So I had to grind down the center one here to allow me to use these two studs, and allowing the fuel filter setup is going to sit on these studs like so. I'm going to have to shimmy it down a little bit more so I can get these threads to stick out and have the bracket sit flush so I can put a 10 mil on it. But for the most part, it's going to sit right here. Now, a lot of people are probably going to tell me, oh, it's too close to the exhaust manifold, or it's going to be too close to the downpipe when it comes through. But the thing is, the shield is protecting the heat from projecting onto the fuel filter, so I'm not going to have an issue with that. When I do make the downpipe, it is going to be wrapped with titanium, and it is going to prevent heat from heat soaking the filter. I can always make a shield for it later, but this is the same way I have it in the Civic wagon, and the car has been turboed since 2017, so it's been a good almost 6 years now, and my fuel pressure regulator is even sketchier in that car, which is right next to the turbo, but the turbo has a blanket, so I'm not too worried about it. If you are worried about it, feel free to move your fuel filter location and your fuel line. So I'm going to have my filter sit right there. I'm going to secure it, and then we'll go and build our fuel line system. I am going to make an entire video using all of the REDZONERACE hardware and provided decals for the inside of the car. We have the engine bay firewall nuts. I have 2 of these that I just used on the fuel filter, and it is looking freaking awesome. So check that out right there, and this thing is nice and secured in place. Okay guys, so I already made the first line just to make sure I remember how to do the PTFE, and that right there is the feed from the hard line that goes to the filter, and right now we're going to be building the line from the filter to go around to the fuel rail. Before we do that, we need to figure out the fitting we need for this end here, and as mentioned earlier, Hunter's kit does provide that fitting, which is this one here. And the reason why I say is this one is because B&R fitting has labels, and this one right here came with the fuel rail, so let's get this on there now. This does have an O-ring on here, so make sure that is on before you install it. Okay, nice and firm. For that fitting, I normally run a 45, which I do in all of my cars because of the post mount and the way it wraps around the valve cover. So I'm gonna go ahead and just mock this up for now, just to get length. You can see the 45 goes around the valve cover, a 90 will go into the valve cover. If I had a straight, it'll look weird to have a hose going like that, because PTFE is actually a lot harder to bend than regular AN rubber hoses. So 45 is gonna work perfectly for the job. From the other end of the fuel filter, we're gonna be rocking a straight. So I'm gonna go ahead and just grab this. Actually, I'm gonna build this line first. I've shown this before and also plenty on the interweb and YouTube. PTFE line is a little bit different than your regular AN. It is 3-piece. You have the front, you have the middle, and then you have the rear. So I already have this nice and cut. What you need to do is you need to put the sleeve onto the hose first. You have to fray the stainless line and the nylon on the outside to expose the PTFE. Don't use anything sharp. You don't want to puncture the line. And then you get this little sleeve. You put it on the Teflon itself. And then make sure you press it to ensure that it sits all the way to the end. You can see I am going underneath the battery a little bit, and then I'm going around the tower to the valve cover. It's going to run along the line of the... You can see I have it routed underneath the battery around to the tower side, and then you can see the line we're trying to get to is right here. So I am going to give it a little slack, so I'm just going to rough eyeball this. Yes sir, feed line from filter is done. Now let's move over to the fuel pressure regulator. So we need to block this end off, and the return system is actually on the bottom. So alrighty then guys, that is the freaking fuel system. So we have the feed going into the filter all the way into the rail through the regulator back to the return system. Big shout out to B&R Fitting, Fuel It for all the fuel components. Big shout out to Huntertuned for the fuel rail. I am super stoked that this thing is getting that much more closer to getting this car fired over, aside from needing an ECU. And yeah, I think that's just the main thing. I also want to give a big thank you to Huntertuned for this wrench right here, because this is super clutch to prevent slippage and stripping of the AN lines, and keeps your colorful fittings colored. So big shout out to Huntertuned for this, for sending it over to the PO box. Right now I'm going to go ahead and just do the brake booster line, since we are done with the intake manifold install. So this right here is a valve, a brake check valve, for if you're running a booster setup. We are running a booster setup. If you do the booster delete setup, then you don't really need this, but I'm going to go ahead and just put some new hoses on it because we have it here, and install it. So this line right here is just going to run with the fuel, just kind of zip them together to make it nice and uniform, and that's that. Guys, I think we are done for tonight. We made a ton of progress on Project Blueberry. We have the eBay intake manifold installed with the eBay throttle body. We are going to be changing the map and the TPS sensor. We have the Speed Factory thermal gasket installed as well too. Big shout out to Hunter. We have his fuel rail installed. Big shout out to B&R Fitting. His brand is Fuel It for the fuel pressure regulator and all the lines and fittings and filter we need for the fuel system. There are still a few small odds and ends I'm going to button up here, like this right here I need to block off. This one right here I may potentially block off and run the coolant temp sensor somewhere else. Obviously the radiator in the previous video, none of it is clamped down yet because we still need to install the fan. Just a bunch of little things we got to do still, but most importantly, we still need the conversion harness, which is on its way here now, and hopefully soon we can button it all up with the wiring and probably rob one of the ECUs from my other car just to throw a base map in it and hopefully fire this thing over. I mean, obviously after I put fluid in here, because I don't have trans fluid just yet because this transmission did not come with any bolts for the fill or drain. The engine itself don't have any engine oil and obviously no coolant. But we are that much more closer and I am so freaking stoked. Everything we use in today's video is in the description below. We have the Huntertuned fuel rail, we have the B&R fittings fuel pressure regulator, the eBay intake manifold, the eBay throttle body. Everything we use here fits the budget. Everything is 100% affordable. Now again, if you guys are doing this and you prefer a different brand or something more high-end, feel free to purchase those items. It's crazy to stand here and look at Blueberry having an almost complete engine in the bay. Like, let me give you guys one more look. It is freaking killer, dude. Look at this. Somebody come look at this. Come look at this. This thing was a shell like a month ago. Look at this. We are going to wrap up the video right here, guys. I hope you enjoyed the progress update on Project Blueberry. If you guys did, be sure to leave a thumbs up. And if you guys want to stick around for, I think the next thing we're going to do here is probably the exhaust system. That giant box right there on the floor. So if you guys want to stick around and see that, be sure to hit the subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.